Hey, fellow tamers and DigiDestined, it's Mike, aka Sinaku from Overground, and today we're recording episode 6 of the How I Became a DigiDestined rather podcast. And here we're talking with Max Tapera. Say hi, Max.
Hello, everybody.
And we're going to be talking to him today about Chrono Clash. So for those unfamiliar with the series so far, we talked to other content creators and we talked about kind of games that they played and were interested in prior to jumping onto the Digimon bandwagon and kind of get an idea for what their thoughts and opinions are of those games. Thoughts or opinions are of Digimon, how the philosophies and whatnot they transitioned from each game to the next. And so let's go ahead and get right into it. So Max, let's talk about Chrono Clash real quick. So Chrono Clash was basically the progenitor to the Digimon Card Game that we know it as today, right?
Yep, absolutely. Even having members of the design board literally going from one game to the next.
Mm-hmm. So talk to me a little bit about, just give me a brief rundown of what Chrono Clash was like as a game.
So, simplest terms, Digimon, but there's no evolution. It's everything's just played from hand. And I guess the only other difference as well is there were 2 color restrictions in decks. You can max out at 2 colors, and you can't do any more than that. Other than that, it's a almost identical game.
And I mentioned this just for transparency. We had a similar technical issue with this video that we did with Sean a little while ago, where we had recorded this prior, and unfortunately the entire file got corrupted. So there are some things that we might have discussed that we might miss this time around, but I'll do my best to kind of touch on some of the same points. But one of the main points that we talked about in the original variation was that I kind of found out about Chrono Clash through Max, because every time he talked about Digimon in his videos, he kept mentioning time instead of memory.
Yeah.
And I was just like, why the hell does he call it that? And then it kind of sent me down into this rabbit hole. Is what the memory gauge of Chrono Clash was actually called. It was their resource system.
Yeah.
It turned into memory to be more kind of, digital apparent, for the Digimon, the Digimon theming and what have you.
Yeah.
So so I mean, it makes sense. Chrono Clash, chrono time.
Yeah.
So you're literally just sharing time with the opponent.
Yeah.
But and I found out that Chrono Clash had a bunch of different IPs kind of associated with it, but the one that I only really saw the most of was Naruto.
Yeah, that's the only one that was supported in competitions.
So in touching on that, we're just going to talk about real quick, because unlike Digimon, which is an actual full-on like trading card game with like new releases that kind of are allowed to bleed into one another, and at the time of this recording 1.5 was literally just released.
So
now we can mix our 1.5 cards with our 1.0 cards.
Whereas
in Chrono Clash, you couldn't do that. You were kind of restricted to the specific IP that you were building a deck on, correct?
Yes,
so
absolutely.
Elaborate on that a little bit more.
So there were the only official supported formats for tournaments were actually just Naruto versus Naruto. In small events, you could do like Naruto against Godzilla, or Naruto against Evangelion, but no TO supported a format where you could mix Godzilla cards with Naruto cards in a deck. So the only time you would ever see that is in like just people just messing around and hanging out with their buddies and stuff.
And you said the gameplay was identical, but we touched upon this a little bit last time we talked about this as well. And you said that there's a bit of a hieroglyphic nature. Instead of using keywords.
Yeah.
So what's that all about?
Yeah. So instead of any type of text, the only text is like the name of the characters on the card. Everything else is just symbols. And when you first get a box of Chrono Clash, obviously there's like an instruction manual, and it has what all the symbols represent. But that was one of the factors that turned a lot of people off from the game, was because they wanted to be able to just like pick it up and like read the cards and try and play, but you couldn't do that without prior knowledge of the symbols, or at least have the instruction manual next to you as you were playing to try and translate it.
Yeah, so did you find that was a little bit difficult for new players to kind of get into the game?
Yes, absolutely. 'Cause, like I said, people were turned away from it. People saw the symbols, and they saw the size of the extra deck cards, and they just said, I don't actually just want to play that just because of that. Which is kind of unfortunate, because the game was so much fun. And after you learn the symbols, like, it's just very easy to go. But it was definitely a big turnoff for most people.
As opposed to something like Digimon now, where we have like actual like physical like keywords.
Yeah, exactly.
Cards to kind of understand. And most of the time now, especially now, we're still getting reminder text, which is nice as well.
Yeah, exactly.
But so there's never any actual like reminder text. It was just symbols or bust. At
Yeah,
this point?
exactly. And I actually feel like that's because when I talk to my friends who don't play Digimon about Digimon, I can like just send them a screenshot of a card, and they can just read the card. And even if they don't play the game, they're like, "Wow, that card's like busted. That card is so good." Even if they don't play the game, but like when I would send them a picture from Chrono Clash with the card with a bunch of symbols on it, they're just like, "I don't know what I'm looking at," and I'm like, "Oh, okay." And it's just, so the symbols were definitely a very weird thing that Chrono Clash had.
So did you have to bring like a legend with you like to a tournament, or did your
yeah, it was
maybe a breakdown on it?
Here, actually, give me 1 second. Literally, if I just roll over. So, and I still have them today, just in case, like when the boys and I like will pick up and like run some games. And I'm playing with some people from Digimon now. Like we're actually like there's a small group of us that bought some stuff and we're all gonna play together. But it's legitimately like an instruction manual that has all the like little symbols.
Yeah.
And it has like the names of them and what they do. So it is very like they could have just wrote what the effects were.
There's so many.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
so,
nuts.
Now, how many of those symbols have actually been transplanted onto Digimon proper?
I'd say less than half, actually. So
really,
yeah. So that makes me excited because, and as we touched on in the last one or last attempt, some of them are awesome and I'm very excited for. Some of them I'm horrified and very scared are gonna come into this game because there were some like very abusable mechanics in Chrono Clash.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and we're kind of, and you mentioned before that you were a little worried about how Chrono Clash was originally designed, and since Digimon is basically such a not necessarily a carbon copy, but a successor to it.
Yeah.
Some of the mechanics that were already introduced previously could make an appearance in Digimon just because it's still Bandai, it's still the same designers, etc. So, what are some mechanics that you would absolutely love to see in Digimon, and then we'll talk about some of the mechanics that you absolutely would hate to see in Digimon.
They have something. For some reason, I feel like there's actually, like, I think Craniumon's the closest to it, but in Chrono Clash there was a effect called Protector, where while this body is on board, any of your other battlers can't become the target of effects. And like I said, Craniumon's probably the closest thing to that because he says none of your blockers can be destroyed by card effects, and obviously he's a blocker himself, but Protector is like basically it puts a target on that one battler and you have to get rid of that before you can start attacking other things.
It's like a lightning rod almost.
Yeah, exactly. The other one is Sentinel, just because I don't like Rookie Rush, where when you put this card in play, you have the option to suspend it, and as long as that card is in play and suspended, your opponent can't attack your security. And then at the start of your unsuspend phase, it unsuspends, and the only way to suspend it again is to attack. So there's the risk that it dies when it attacks, but obviously, like, it'll deter things like Rookie Rush. And then there's, I guess, two effects. One is kind of already a thing, and we touched on this last time. I forget what it's called, but the effect where you say if you like hard play like a 2 cost and then you evolve up into a level 4, and the effect allows it to attack instantly. That is a something that came from Chrono Clash. I forget what it's called.
Yeah.
It's something, but that was an exact thing in Chrono Clash. But in Chrono Clash, since there was no evolutions, it was just you would hard play this and it would swing, and then after the swing it would die because that was the actual effect. But I mean, you just do that like 6 times in a game and you win. So I mean, and that was super obnoxious. And the last one that I sadly, as sad as I am to say this, I wouldn't want to see it, is called Reinforcement. And this was a deck that actually ran, but Reinforcement was before it got errated was whenever this battler dies by any means, like card effects, battle, anything. Replace it with a Digimon or a battler who is the same cost or cheaper. So
I remember talking about this.
that's like super abusable. And like they ratted it to the point where it's like 1 cost or lower. But I mean, it's still pretty like nuts, especially in Digimon when like say if you evolve up into something, but it's 13 cost a hard play and it dies, and you can play anything that's like 12 cost or lower for free. That's gonna cause a lot of issues.
Yeah, I can see them tempering that though to be like the same evolution cost.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
So just in terms of how the game kind of scales up comparatively, but yeah, no, I can understand your trepidation when it comes to those sorts of effects. Because,
Yeah.
and like we just discussed with Advance, we're already seeing kind of new mechanics come into play with Digimon. I don't know, have you seen that new I think it's called Delay?
I have not.
Okay, so it's a new mechanic in Digimon where it's like you play an option, but then the option gets kind of put into play like a continuous spell from Yu-Gi-Oh! And then during a certain trigger, you can just like send it to the discard pile to do something else.
I have not seen that. That's kind of nuts.
So they just revealed it's like a 3-cost red card, and it's just like you play it and you like look at the top 3 and you add one of what you added. I think it has to be like a level 3 or level 4 or 3 to your hand, and then then you put this option into play and it just sits there. And then anytime during your opponent's turn, you can just ditch it and you gain 2 memory.
What? That's nasty. What?
Yeah.
That's crazy. Because if your opponent accidentally puts himself to 1 and you activate that, it just passes you. That's so nuts.
Yeah.
That's
so I was going to
crazy.
say, was that something that was in Chrono Clash? But I guess
no. I'm glad because that's not. Yeah, that's so crazy. That's so good. That's like it low-key more reminds me of like hand traps to Yu-Gi-Oh, but like as a continuous spell, like you said. That's so wild. That's so interesting.
Yeah. When I heard about that, I was like, "Oh, this is going to be a great question to ask Max," because I wasn't sure if Chrono Clash something. But that's good to know because now we can see that Digimon's kind of experimenting beyond.
Yeah,
definitely, absolutely.
They're definitely taking some new risks and new gambles and trying new things out. So, speaking about Yu-Gi-Oh, and I meant to ask this in the beginning, but I kind of got sidetracked.
Yeah,
I want to talk about kind of what your history with card games was into Chrono Clash.
So my first card game ever was the original Naruto card game, but that was me and my boys in middle school playing in my friend's basement. Never got competitive. There was a locals around us that we went to. They used to sell packs, but then when the game died, we still wanted to play card games. And the biggest game that our local supported was Yu-Gi-Oh! So we got into Yu-Gi-Oh! Played locally, never went any higher than that. And then because of how much I liked the IP of just Naruto overall, when I heard about Chrono Clash, I was like, okay, I definitely need to try this. Our locals didn't support the game at all, so the only events that I could play in were PPG events. And then I topped every PPG event that I went to, and we got everyone in our friend group got our invites to their Players Invitational Championship. And then obviously when Chrono Clash died, we all heard that it was because Digimon was coming. And I never watched Digimon or anything before that, so I was kind of hesitant. But I knew how much I enjoyed Chrono Clash, and I was like, even if it's like half as fun as Chrono Clash was, I'm gonna enjoy it. And without question, Digimon is like so much more fun. So I'm very glad that I did, and yeah, now I'm here, DigiDestined. Woo.
Woo. Yeah. I'm not going to beat a dead horse, but you already know kind of my history with Digimon and kind of my love for everything like that. So I was pretty much in for a penny, in for a pound, no matter what.
Yeah. I gotcha.
But it's fun to see that you migrated to this card game basically because you just followed the evolution.
Yeah.
Like, it's literally like Chrono Clash just
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You like anime? We transmuted.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
There you go. So that's kind of a fun thing. Yeah, but so it's fun to see that, because I've talked to a bunch of other people who've had history in just like previous card games in general. And these card games have been around for 20 years plus. Right?
Yeah.
And then Digimon comes around and they just think that, oh, this looks interesting. Whereas you were basically already riding this wave and you just kind of followed it through the metamorphosis, which is really cool.
Yeah.
So I want to talk a bit about the PPG events.
Mm-hmm.
So what was the tournament structure? You mentioned earlier it was kind of like Naruto versus Naruto, and you mentioned the deck building for 2 colors.
Yeah.
So elaborate a bit more on the deck building restrictions and how a tournament structure for Chrono Clash took place, and kind of what your experiences were with in-person PPG events. Now that we ever get one of those for Digimon, right?
Yeah, such a long time ago, back in the day when we could actually play in tournaments. They're all Switch, and I think that's another thing that's so different too. Is they were all Swiss tournaments. They weren't like, well, I guess they're Swiss now, but they all had top cuts after. So that was a weird transition. Because after like Swiss, I'm like, okay, let's go to top cut, but tournament's just over, and it's like, oh, okay, that was weird. But PPG was awesome. Like I said, we went to a decent amount. We went to Richmond, Philadelphia. We went to the one in Otakon, and then I feel like there was one more. But then we went to the one in Florida. Great environment. I got to meet a lot of cool people. I got on first name basis with all the guys that worked there. But it was like your pretty like standard. Like I've only been to a Yu-Gi-Oh regional once, and it was only just to go and like support my friends. I never participated in one. But it seemed like pretty standard. Everything ran pretty smoothly. The only downside, and I think I shared this last time, my friend and I knew the rulings and the effects of everything better than the judge that we kept getting placed with. Yeah. So like he would have to ask us for help at certain times, and that was a little weird. But I mean, it was a small game that didn't exactly have the most like support by its company. So I mean, I didn't like think too much of it.
And then, but how did the deck building work too?
So deck building was minimum 50, maximum 60. And yeah, there was a maximum. And again, 2 colors restriction, as in like you can max out at 2 colors. You could run mono colored decks, but then you're just kind of handicapping yourself because you're turning off the ability to utilize the best of 2 colors. And it was a lot easier in Chrono Clash than it is to make more hybrid color decks, at least for like as it was in 1.0, because in Chrono Clash, like I said, they're all just hard play cards, so there doesn't really need to be synergy. All their effects can just like say you on play pop this thing, and it doesn't matter like if you have a yellow or purple or something in on field. Whereas like obviously in Digimon, if you have like 3 yellow level 3s and the only level 4s that you have in your hand are going to be purples, obviously that stalls you up a little bit, and is suboptimal. So it was able to run a lot more consistently because they didn't have those restrictions that we have in Digimon now.
Mm-hmm. And were there anything like how many colors were there? Sorry.
There was only 4. There was red, purple, blue, and green.
Okay. I was gonna say, were there any kind of dual colors that like synergized or worked well together better than others?
Yes. So blue was like really draw heavy and could manipulate memory. Green manipulated memory because they had like basically their own version of Hammer Spark. Also, they have the leader effect, which is kind of similar to download, but I think leader was a better version of it, because leader's effect was when you attack, the next person that you put into play is X amount cheaper to hard cost. Where X is obviously like whatever, it like fluctuates between leader cards.
Yeah.
And then obviously download or Digisorption now, you have to rest something to do that. But I guess it's similar, but like you get the attack out of it. So that
feel like that could be a bit more fair though, to be honest.
Because there's like the chance that like the first thing dies. And then purple and yellow were just mass removal. Like purple was more destruction, and red was like sending things back to hand. So like when you put them together, obviously it just you clear your opponent's board very quickly. It's very good.
So the colors themselves didn't quite translate the same.
No. Because obviously like how there was nothing like Wizardmon where it's like when you have a card of the opposite color in play, you get to do stuff. There was nothing like that.
And what was like your meta like in Naruto, where you just, because if you're playing the same IP and the same kind of, because Chrono Clash kind of everything kind of came in a box, right?
Yeah.
When you bought into a set, you got a play set of everything, and everything was kind of just easily accessible to you. You don't have to buy extra booster packs. You don't have to worry about trading or selling or buying or anything. So when you buy this Naruto box, you have the entire Naruto card pool.
Yeah.
was there just a best deck that you could build out of that box?
Yes, absolutely. So the first one, there was a lot less diversity. You could either go green red, which was basically the leader effect, where it makes all your costs a lot cheaper with the splash of red that could help remove threats against just red purple. But because I mean, as a Digimon player, I'm sure you could like visualize the ability to just constantly add board presence to yours as you take away your opponents is just disgusting. And it was like and then we got a lot more diversity when the second wave of boxes came out because they gave really good support to all the colors. But it became more one-sided though, which is very weird. There was more good decks in the second wave, but the best deck in that format was like leaps and bounds stronger than anything. How do I word this? The deck that was number 1 and number 2 in the first format were a lot closer together in performance and capabilities than the first and second place deck in the second format, if that makes sense.
I think it's where you're going. It was much more skill intensive, I guess. Like it was more rewarding to play it. What's the word I'm looking for here? Tighter, I guess.
It was more like okay, so the first and second, I think the best way I can at least try to sum it up is the first and second place deck in the first format, say like the first place deck was probably like tier 1 and the second place deck could be like tier 2, where in the second format the best deck was tier 0 and the second place deck was tier 2. So like there's like a gap between that's how I'm trying to like.
I see. Okay. Yeah. So it's almost like they raised the power ceiling.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. Yeah. Exactly. Thank you. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. That's it.
So like to me that sounds a little boring though. Like just playing the same mirror match.
Yeah.
Every single day, all day, every day.
That's why I was so surprised, because you would think we would have seen a lot of mirror matches, but you honestly had no idea what you were going to play at a tournament, because there was like a little bit of everything. Yeah, it was pretty fun. It was pretty good. I think.
I was gonna say. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, it's just we had a really good group of people, and like everybody had like such different ideas about the game, and there was still like some really really good stuff that could be abused in almost every color. And I think it was honestly just like different types of people just wanted to utilize different types of little mechanics. It was cool. It was really cool. So it helped to keep it diverse.
Well, I was going to say, coming into Digimon, did you feel that, especially just as we end our 1.0 format, did you feel that 1.0 had that same level of diversity that Chrono Clash could have, or did you feel that it was actually worse, that it was even more just mirror matches all day?
It was mirror match. Like, I mean, I think the smallest amount of representation I've seen from a blue Omnimon deck in a tournament was like 60% of players. Like, that's nuts. Like, that was crazy. I don't think I've ever played a card game where it was like everybody's only playing a deck. Because like even Yu-Gi-Oh, they're like at the least it's like top 3. So like you'll still see like those 3 decks where like blue Omni for Digimon. I don't think anyone ever went into a Digimon tournament thinking I'm not gonna see blue Omnimon today. Because like it's coming. There's at least somebody.
But did you feel that coming from Chrono Clash that you were better prepared for just mirror matches in general?
Yes.
Like because you were constantly like basically testing and playing against the same deck all the time, so you kind of already had that mentality of different techs or different strategies or different ideas when it comes into matchups.
Absolutely. And I think again this is the sad we lost it on the last attempt, and I don't think I was better prepared. Like I don't sound cocky when I say that, but it was just the fact that like I've seen how people like can manipulate time before, and obviously people who are new to something like the time/memory gauge don't know exactly like how to utilize it the best. So like I could be prepared for it more, and then going against the mirror match, honestly, because I guess the best way I could put it is the guy who won the very first PPG for that event is in our friend group, and I was able to do well because after he topped, everyone hopped onto that deck, and since I played against him so much, I learned that honestly the only way to really learn the ins and outs of the deck is to play against it nonstop, but then also play it nonstop. So like all the weaknesses inside and out, and like oh, when I pilot this deck, I know what's annoying and I know what hurts me. So if I can just do that when I'm playing against the deck, it helps a lot.
Yeah, and it's funny you say that because like I like to build pretty much everything all the time, right?
Definitely.
And like especially when I get the rest of my own 5 boxes in, I plan on just building the whole spectrum. And a lot of people go, "Oh, you're wasting your money because you're just doing this to be a content creator and make videos." I'm like, "Well, no, I'm not. I want to learn how to play every single game.
Exactly.
The more times I get to spend with more decks more often, it lets me know that I actually can like get a better acquainted with the inner like
definitely
the inner weaknesses and stuff like that too.
Yeah.
So whenever I go up against matchup, I can be like, okay, when I played this deck, this was the trouble I was running.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
And I capitalize on that.
Yeah.
Right? So
definitely.
Yes,
and it was a lot. I will say it was a lot easier to do that though in Chrono Clash than it is in Digimon because, like you said, you could buy the box of Naruto and you have a playset of every card in the game. Where in Digimon, you're gonna need to buy a little bit more than that.
So
just a smidge.
Yeah, just the smallest bit more.
Just a bit.
Mm-hmm.
So now I want to talk about content creation, kind of your coming out into Twitch and stuff. So you started kind of your YouTube career on Chrono Clash specifically, right?
Yep.
So talk to me a little bit about that. What kind of drove you to want to kind of advertise that route? Was it a case of you wanted to get the name of the game out there a little bit more, or was it just kind of you're sitting at home one day and you're thinking, you know what, this seems fun?
So it was actually, before I started, the only Chrono Clash content that you could actually find on YouTube was people just opening up the boxes. And it was very weird because it was just people just like, haha, new Naruto game, this is cool. But those people never did like playtesting videos or anything. So I thought that was very odd. So I was like, since it's such a small community and like at this point we're all playing online and we all know each other already and no one's actually like making content for it, I was like, okay, I'll like take it on. Because like our community was very small. Like I think the Facebook group, even as it is now, only has like 1,000 people in it. And obviously like Digimon hit like 12,000 before I think like even pre-release was, or even the first official release of English 1.0. So it shows you how small the game was. But I was able to I wanted to be the person that was like making content since I knew I wanted to see content and I could just imagine that other people do too. And that definitely kind of like inspired me to go to all the PPG events because I figured even if I don't top, it was such a tight-knit circle with everyone in the community that everybody would be fine with me doing deck profiles of their decks when they topped. So every single event that we went to, we got deck profiles from at least 2 of like the top 8 players. So we were able to go and get the content out there for the people that wanted to see it. And I thought that'd be cool because I was like, okay, I'll do it, and that was cool, and that's what made me want to do it.
And was the jumping to Twitch also a result of Chrono Clash, or is that more based around Digimon specifically?
So that's more about through Digimon. The reason why I started doing that was honestly I used to put gameplay videos up of Chrono Clash up, but editing down like hours worth of gameplay recording takes a long time and takes up a lot of space on my computer, and I'm like, okay, and I'm like, well, since we're already in a webcam kind of format, I can legitimately just have it going and the content's just out there raw.
Yeah.
And it was really cool because it allowed me to split a little bit, even though I have to get back to my YouTube channel. Because I wanted my YouTube channel to be, okay, this is where I make like little funny skit videos, and this is where I put up like the deck profiles of the decks that I've tested and that have performed well. And then I'd be able to point to Twitch and be like, okay, if you guys ever actually want to see how this works in like real time, you can just like watch me stream over there. And then but then every once in a while, if there's VODs of like really, really good games, I'll still download that and just crop out everything that's not the entire match and still dump it over on YouTube.
Like what we had a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, exactly. Because that Black versus Rookie Rest deck or Rookie Rest game was so much fun. That was intense.
That was so crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was good. Yeah.
No, that's fun. No, because it's just I always kind of love hearing the stories about different content creators kind of found their way to the platform and stuff like that. Because like for me, it was a case of, COVID hit. I didn't have a job. I didn't really know what to do with myself.
Yeah, I got
you. I said, you know what? I want to talk about this game, and
hell
here
yeah.
we are. So
that's a very and I like how you worded that, because that's what I've noticed about Twitch that I think. And again, I don't want to sound like cocky or something like that, but as someone who used to just watch Twitch content creators, and obviously like even YouTubers, from someone who'd watched them, it always appeared to me that they were almost like famous within those communities. Like when I played Yu-Gi-Oh, like I'd watch Simo and like Team Sam and people like that, and they're like big guys. And like when we went to the PPG events for Chrono Clash, Simo was there all the time because he commentates the Yu-Gi-Oh events. So it's like almost like famous person inside the community. But now that I'm a Twitch streamer, and like it is better, where it's legitimately like Twitch isn't, at least in my eyes, not a platform where like I'm famous or anything. It's legitimately just a way that brings everyone in the community together. Like when I see people like hanging out in chat, like I'll play with people who watch my stream constantly, and it's literally just a way to like interact with more people, and like that's so cool. And like especially in a time where we can't go to locals and do that, like it made it really, really awesome, and I really like that about Twitch.
Did Chrono Clash ever have like a webcam format type thing, like a play at home type issue?
They do. They did a lot of untapped tournaments, but they never did webcam.
No.
Because I honestly didn't even know webcam games were a thing until the Yu-Gi-Oh! Remote duels came out, and I was like, oh, that's dope. And then they started doing it for Digimon. I'm like, cool.
So how do you think your content's going to transition once, if ever, we go back to real life events? Do you think Bandai's still going to hold webcam events?
I don't think so. I'm sure I'm sure locals would, just to like bring in more people if like their local scene isn't big. But I think it would be like a slow they'd wean us away from it. I don't think one day they'd just be like, okay, no more webcam tournaments. But yeah, I can see like in like a year or two, I don't think we'd have webcam tournaments anymore. But I know, like, at least me personally, I'm still going to be playing webcam games, because there's friends of mine that I've met through the Discord and through this game that are like cross country. And as much as I love my Digimon boys, I'm not gonna fly cross country every weekend just to play some Digimon with them.
That's fair.
Yeah.
At least it's cool that the webcam kind of brought the community together. Like, in literally exactly like that. Like, I could play you, for example, and I'm in Canada. You're
exactly.
So, like, it's kind of cool that that kind of regional breakdown it is no longer existing, as opposed to me like having to go to a regional and play the same 50 people every day.
Exactly.
Enter a PPG event and play like 12 different people for the course of so I think that's really cool, and I think that was really smart for Digimon to do that right out of the gate.
Yes, definitely.
They launched in such a shit time.
Yeah.
So the fact that we were able to actually grow the community and keep the community alive so far through these webcam events, I think was really, really smart and really cool. So the fact that not only that, you can actually piggyback off that success as well for
exactly, definitely.
Gain is even cooler, right?
Yeah, definitely.
I think it will force me though, like when like full tournaments come back out, to go back to YouTube things, because I've spent way too much time on Twitch. Like I'll do like 10-11 hour streams going into the night, and just put no content on YouTube. But it'll like force me to be like, okay, I have to start doing like, I could do like market watches like people do like deck profiles of just things that I think would be good, and then go back to like the skit videos and things. But I'd still like to at least play a little bit on webcam.
That's totally fair.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think that's pretty much covers most of the ground that we covered last time. Is there anything you think we missed?
I don't think so. No, I don't think so. I can't think of anything.
All right. Do you have any questions for me? Or we pack it up.
What are you most excited for going forward, whether it be 1.5 or onward?
I'm both excited and terrified about new mechanics that are going to be introduced.
Okay.
Because I'm, and we touched upon this briefly about how I asked you, would you prefer a set rotation or a ban list?
Oh, yeah,
And
yeah,
you
yeah,
had
yeah.
said that you prefer a ban list.
Yeah.
And my fear is that we're going to kind of get so deep in the trenches that the game's going to be like so fast and so wild that we
Yeah.
might have to get a rotation in place, and that worries me.
Yeah.
Because I
That
think
makes sense.
this is
That
the type
actually
of
makes a
game-
lot of sense. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think this is the type of game where a ban list might be more suitable.
Mhm.
But the problem is that since the game is literally such like it's in its infancy, right? So we don't know
Yeah.
kind of what to expect or what to come. But the fact that we keep getting these random reveals that are just kind of like really busted at first glance,
Yeah. Yeah.
and you just sit and you're going like, well, that's pretty bad. I wonder what's next. And then
Yeah,
you know,
definitely.
Definitely.
so like,
And the fact
I'm
that
both
it's sped up
excited-
it's sped up so much within like, well, for us it's been like the first year, and like it's grown so much, and like you said, there's so much busted stuff that's coming and like has already been confirmed. That's like, for like
Yeah.
as time goes on, how nuts is this stuff gonna get?
and that's what worries me a little bit. I
Yeah.
really hope Bandai kind of just slows it down.
Yeah.
It doesn't go too big too soon,
Yeah. Definitely.
and kind of paces everything out, because I want this game to last. I absolutely do.
Yeah. Definitely. Yeah.
And yeah, so that's kind of my big thanks for coming to my TED talk.
Yeah, no, because it makes sense, because it's like, yeah, that would. I just don't want it to be, as someone who came from Yu-Gi-Oh, I don't want Digimon to turn into like the die roll format, where it's basically like, okay, I literally win the die roll, set up my board, and you can't do anything, and then it's like, okay, that was fun, I guess, that's it, and GG's.
Thankfully, I think the way the memory system works, we don't really have to worry about that. But there can be some just like super nutty, cheap interactions that we could be seeing down the road.
Yeah. True.
That are just going to like change the landscape of the game, and that's kind of what I'm both looking forward to, but both kind of anxious.
Yeah,
about.
exactly.
So I
Yeah,
just wanna
Definitely. Absolutely. Yeah.
They just kind of toe the line a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, so I think that'll do it. So yeah, once again, guys, this was episode 6 of How I Became a DigiDestined, where we talked to our buddy Max Tapera about his experiences with Chrono Clash. So again, I have been Mike, aka Sanaku from Overground. If you like what you see here, if you want to see more episodes of this series, please consider subscribing and stay tuned to the channel for more to come. We do have the next episode on tap. It's going to be Joe Dobby, and we're going to be talking to him about Keyforge. So we'll see you later. Have a good one, guys.